I'm going to speak on the Parashat Vaetchanan, and I gave it the title, Why Do We Make Things So Complicated? You know, I can't tell you how excited I was when I was reading this portion of Vaetchanan. It's a long one, but it's such an important message for us today. I could hear Moshe's desperation, first as he was pleading with the Creator to let him go into the Promised Land, and later as he was reminding his people about being Am Segula, a treasured people, chosen by the Borei Olam. That means that's us, and we are not to be like any of the other nations, but we are to be an example to them, so that they would say, as it says in this portion, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what great nation is there that has their God so near to them as the Lord our God is, whenever we call upon him? And what great nation is there that his statutes and ordinances, as righteous as his, are all in this Torah, which I set before you this day? This we read in Deuteronomy 4, verses 6 to 8. This Torah was not meant to be exclusively for us. It was so that all the nations would come to know our God, the one and only Creator. How different the world would be today if that were the case. As I continued reading, the words jumped out of the page at me, as if I could see myself standing there at the mountain, listening to God's voice thundering from the heavens. What made us not want to listen? What made us say, we will do, and we will obey, but then we didn't? What makes us prefer to hold on to Egypt, to hold on to our past, and to not be willing to move forward? It seems that the more I read the Torah, the more questions I have, and the less answers. It's so frustrating for me because I know that my life needs to be an example for others to follow. And yet I sometimes fold under that pressure. But then I remember that I'm only human, that God is in control, and that I just need to trust him in all things, and simply to put one foot in front of the other and to just keep moving forward step by step. When I speak to others about my experience that brought me to know this wonderful God, most people can't relate to them. We all need to learn from our own experiences. That should take the pressure off my shoulders and put it where it belongs, in God's hands. But just as Moses felt desperate, I too feel desperate, especially when I see what's happening in our world today. There's war again in Israel. There are wars all over the world. Not only physical wars, the worst wars that are happening are against the soul, against our moral values, and against our freedom. The solution seems so simple to me, as it must have seemed to Moses. But it looks like on this side of eternity, suffering is an integral part of our growth. That unless we suffer, we will never know true joy. Unless we feel the heat of the day, we won't appreciate the coolness of the evening. So why do we make things so complicated? I think that if we just read the Torah, that should be enough. But it isn't. Each of us needs a touch from our Creator to open our spiritual eyes. What is it about our nature that makes us fight and rail against the Creator who only wants the best for us? It's possible to have a superficial relationship with life, with the people around us, and still think that we're happy. But true joy, deep joy, and shalom comes from a place deep within our soul, a place that is connected to the divine. What makes some people get so caught up in this material world? What they're going to eat, what they're going to wear, who they're going to see, where they're going to go, to the point that they can't see beyond their nose. The scriptures say that they have ears, but they cannot hear, that they have eyes, but they cannot see. Simply speaking to them about the Torah accomplishes nothing. Our Rabbi Yeshua, like Moshe, desperately wanted our people to see and to hear. In his Sermon on the Mount, Yeshua told us not to worry about what we wear or what we're going to eat. Our Heavenly Father knows everything that we need. Yeshua was always pointing back to the Creator, back to the basic Torah. But how many people even listened to him back then? They wanted signs and wonders, healings and miracles. But simple obedience was never part of their plan. When Yeshua told us to go out into the world to make disciples, to make Talmidim, students, I believe that he was speaking about those who already had their eyes and ears opened by the Borei Olam. Only he can do that. Biblical Judaism is not a religion like Christianity or Islam or even Rabbinic Judaism. Our love for the Torah makes us want to be an example instead of wanting to convert others to man-made rules. When I was involved in Christianity, I struggled with the idea that a man could be God. I had seen this in many of the religions and ideologies that I sought out in my younger years. Moshe wasn't telling us to obey the 613 ordinances quoted by our sages, nor was he pointing to the New Testament, that wasn't even written yet, nor to the Quran, nor the Bhagavad Gita, or the teachings of the Buddha. God made it very clear in chapter 4 of Devarim, verses 15 to 19, where it says, "Therefore, take good heed to yourselves, for you saw no manner of form on the day that the Lord spoke to you in Horeb, Mount Sinai, out of the midst of the fire, lest you corrupt yourselves and make an engraved image, the form of any figure, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any beast that is on the earth, of any winged fowl that flies in the heavens, or anything that creeps on the ground, or any fish in the water, lest you lift up your eyes to heaven, and when you see the sun, the moon, and the stars, and all the hosts of heavens, you'll be drawn away, and worship and serve them, which the Lord your God has allotted to all the peoples under the whole heaven." Religions have so many statues and pictures of their gods. There's pantheism and astrology, from which we are told here to stay away. There is only one Creator, one Torah for all, and Moshe warned us, "Do not add to the word which I command you, nor take away from it, so that you may keep the mitzvot which I command you." When religious leaders impose upon us their rules, their regulations, their words that our God did not tell Moshe to write in his Torah, aren't they in direct opposition to his words? In chapter 4:26, Moshe calls upon two witnesses, heaven and earth, to witness against us, that if we fail, we will perish from the land that he was giving us, and would be scattered among the nations and be left few in number. Look at the nations today that are as ancient as Israel. India has 1.38 billion people. China has 1.4 billion. Yet the Jewish people remain at only 14.8. This is what the Torah just said, scattered among the nations and be left few in number. His word is so true. It continues with, "And there you shall serve gods, the work of men's hands, wood and stone, which neither see, nor hear, nor eat, nor smell. But from there you will seek the Lord your God, and you shall find him, if you search for him with all your heart and with all your soul." What drives us to search for him? The next verse says, "In your distress." When all these things have come upon you in the end of days, you will return to the Lord your God and listen, Shamat, to his voice. People didn't want to listen to his voice that day at the base of the mountain. It was too much for them. Most people today still don't want to listen to anything about him, including our own family and friends. But here is what Moshe said in chapter 4, verse 32. For ask now about the past long before you, since the day that God created man upon this earth, and from the one end of heaven to the other, whether there has ever been such a thing as great as this, or has been heard like that. Did ever a people hear the voice of God speaking out of the midst of the fire as you have heard, and live? Or has God tried to go and take a nation from the midst of another nation by trials, by signs, by wonders, by war, and by a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, by great terrors, according to all that the Lord your God did for you in Egypt before your very eyes? To you it was shown, that you might know that the Lord, He is God, and there is no one else beside Him. In chapter 5, Moshe repeats the most important elements in our relationship with our Creator. Shema Israel et hachukim v'el hamishpatim. Now listen, hear, pay attention to the chukim, the statutes. These are referring to the middle two commandments about Shabbat and honoring our father and mother. And the mishpatim, the ordinances, referring to the last 5 commandments about our neighbor, so that we can do them, so that we may live. The words edut, testimony, mitzvot, commandments, chukim, statutes, mishpatim, ordinances, are repeated over and over in this portion to try to knock them into our stubborn heads. And they are referring to the 10 sayings, the Asarat HaDibrot. In chapter 5, Moshe repeats what lies at the heart of all that God wanted for His people to do and to teach others. The Lord our God made a covenant with us in Horeb. The Lord did not make His covenant with our fathers alone, but with us. We are here alive this day. That includes you and me. You shall walk in all the ways which the Lord your God has commanded you, so that you may live and it may be well with you, and that you may prolong your days in the land which you shall possess. In chapter 6, Moshe gives us the Shema, which we sing every Shabbat. And it's a prayer that we Jews have kept close to our hearts wherever we have been scattered. We entered the ovens singing out, Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. We've been repeating it for thousands of years. Hear, O Lord, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And this is followed by the Ahavta, which also we sing every Shabbat. Rabbi Yeshua summed up the 10 commandments using this prayer. We are to love the Lord our God with all our hearts, with all our soul, with all our resources, and to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. Learning to love ourselves is a full-time job. But unless we do, we cannot love others. Love isn't a feeling. It's about loyalty, commitment to serve others, and it takes hard work. As we step into the role that we are each given to fulfill in a community, despite our faults, despite our weaknesses, as we use the gifts and talents that He built into us, our light shines out to others and our gifts increase. Let us not compare our gifts with anyone else, but be happy with what we each have been given. If you don't know what your gifts are, ask others who spend time with you. And then don't say, yeah, but. In chapter 6, verse 20, when your son asks you in times to come, what do the testimonies mean, and the statutes and the ordinances which the Lord our God has commanded you? How can our children ask us if we don't tell them the story that is at the foundation of our people, the Exodus story at Pesach, with its promises by God to never leave us nor forsake us? with its picture that no matter how difficult our lives can be in a foreign land, our God is with us, Immanuel. And the Lord commanded us to do all these hukim, to fear the Lord our God for our good always, that he might sustain us with life as it is at this day. What are the hukim? Again, to observe the Shabbat, to honor our parents. God doesn't need us to observe them for him. They're for our good, so that it will go well with us. Are things going well for you? If not, perhaps it's time to examine our behavior in respect to his commandments. When we read the Torah, we are learning from the best. And when we observe, when we do what's in the Torah, we are doing the best that we can for our lives and for those around us. What does that look like practically? Let me tell you, keeping his commandments is hard work. It may seem simple, but it's a constant battle with our nature. And the same way that God gave us the land, we had to work hard to attain it. God gave us the commandments, but it takes willingness, love for him and for ourselves, along with effort to keep them. He wants us to love mercy, to love justice, to love truth, to help widows, to take care of the orphans and the elderly, those who cannot take care of themselves. It takes us out of our comfort zones. But remember, we're not alone. Whatever we do in partnership with our creation. And that is powerful. In this Parashat Vaetchanan, Moshe was reminding us that our ancestors stood before the Lord God in Mount Sinai, telling us to come together to hear his words so that we could learn to fear, to revere, to honor God all the days that we live upon the earth, and to teach our children to do the same. That's our calling during all our days on this beautiful gift of a planet. Shabbat Shalom.